Yes, so this reading begins with the energetical gang stalking of Mr. Adolf Robert Thornton Jr. And please understand that Mr. Thornton, Robert Thornton Jr., he wants everyone to know, and I did not ever have a chance to meet this wonderful and intellectual human being, but I do want everyone to understand he is very, very proud of his heritage and his ancestry. And I also see energetically that he was moving in the direction of getting to know, even as far as maybe someday even taking, it may have been mentioned to him, or he may have thought about his own lineage, taking some type of ancestry test, or possibly moving in the direction of his ancestry. This particular reading, I want to start off with the energetic part of what I pick up from Mr. Adolf Robert Thornton Jr., who came into my aura around November 28th until now. He comes and he goes. So I call it the energetical gang stalking of Mr. Adolf Robert Thornton, because there are some of us who come into this world. We are born into families that have certain situations going on that kind of are made to keep us from bearing the light onto others and raising the vibration of everyone around them. And I pick up that was indeed the case with Mr. Adolf Robert Thornton Jr., that from birth, he came into circumstances that were at times even brutal. There were some things that I was picking up. I don't know. I do know that he was born in Chicago and he ended up in Memphis, Tennessee. I am very interested in the real story of what truly happened while he lived in Chicago as a young boy, as a child. And I'm wondering if someone in his family was very religious, and perhaps he may have gone to church during that time, or someone around him may have considered him going to church or being around a priest or something of that nature. Yeah, I will just leave that there and leave the masses to possibly look into that. I'm not sure. So I will not speak on that. But I do find early on in his energy that there was something very, very brutal that took place in his early parts of his life. So let's see. I will first also start by saying, please uplift Adolf Robert Thornton Jr. And you can say his name, and make sure you say Robert Thornton Jr. in your prayers to the Creator. Please, if you are and were or have become a fan of his, there is something about his energy and his essence that is on the music that uplifts you. So please return the favor by uplifting him energetically. And you do that with prayer to the Creator. And be careful when you say God. Make sure you say God, the Creator. Please. I think since this reading is so ancestral and so spiritual, that it is important that you address the actual energy that he needs. I can see early on that there were many tactics used to distract Mr. Adolf Thornton Jr.'s energy. Even as I said early on, as a child, I see him as I feel him as a very, very strong energy. Many of his fans and people felt his energy and still feel his energy. And you can see that his energy is continuing to stay around. So when people say rest in peace, I beg you to do a little bit more spiritual, I can tell you that please go ahead and do some more spiritual investigation on who we are and what we are as spirits in a shell. The Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. You cannot leave out the Spirit. So the Spirit does not rest in peace when it is violently taken out of its shell. That's not something that I came up with. That's just how it is. So if you think you kill someone or you take them out of their bodies and they're just gone, they are not. They are not. Let's see. I see at the latter part. Let's start at the latter part of his life, which is so interesting. Such an interesting energy. I see that he was getting ready to evolve. A lot of the thoughts and ideas that he held early on in life, they had changed and were beginning to change. Things that I was, doing a reading on him, and it felt like it was like a topsy-turvy. So things that are as above, so below. He began to really realize that things were actually flipped. What looks like what it looks like and what it is are two different things. And he saw that parallel throughout the latter part of his life. The things that he believed in at first and thought were true about, let's just say, idea of women. If you are born in the South, a lot of the idea of the women is they want the guy next door who went to college, played high school football, went to church, especially in the Black community, also in the Catholic community, and most other communities. You go to church, God, and, family. And I see that he was beginning to think differently about the institutions of those things, not necessarily the premise of those things, because he was an idealist. I see him as an idealist, so he ideally thought, let me have the perfect image in these things, whether it be religion, whether it be family, and whether it be even business. There's a certain way that he believed at first things should be done and how life should look. But towards the end, not so much. He began to see that what he thought was up may have been down, and what he thought was down. And I give an example of, maybe you have spent your life in a very, very enclosed, maybe sheltered environment. Not saying that's what he had by any point of the matter, but at the same time, he did have those ideals where you would have thought maybe someone who was on a porno or someone who may have been seen at and in society as what someone would judge as a lack of moral character. He began to see that maybe those people actually are the people who do have the softest hearts, who really are genuine people, who really are people that the world doesn't understand. And him being a person that the world truly did not understand in a lot of ways, because there was more to him than which it leads me to the next part. There was definitely more to him than just what we heard on albums. He was a supreme and superior intellect. Supreme and superior intellect who had not really learned to express his intellect in words. He believed in action. Action, I'm sure, was this young man's first name. He says, Robert, he wants to, make sure that the Robert comes across. But he was an action person, a very maybe stubborn person who as I said, towards the end of his life began to change his ideals about things. But in the beginning, it was what it was, and it was what it was, and it is what it is. And that's how he thought about shit. That it just is what it is, and that's how it's going to be. And towards the end, he began to probably change his ideas about a lot of things in life. You have to keep in mind, he was just in Earth years, 36 years of age. That is probably around the time between 36 and 45 or 42. Some people say that you have this awakening, and that he was always prone to, and had began to start having this awakening. There may have even been separations from ideas and people that he may have held close, and it was painful. And when I tell you painful, I do mean painful as in he may have spent time in solace and sobbing and crying about knowing that the only way for him to evolve is to let go of people, places, things, and ideas that he had once held true. It's so beautiful to come across such a strong but beautiful energy. Sometimes when people are taken out of their bodies, they turn bad. They don't go towards goodness. They don't go towards goodness. But this soul that was called Adolf Robert Thornton Jr., this soul was old. He had been here before, and he had a karmic energy that he knew that in this life, in order for him to stay on the good, if that's what people call it, good, but on the light side, he could not compromise his soul. Soul is so important to this particular energy, which is why probably more than likely I was able to connect to it in a very, very powerful way. And probably why in the next videos you will see that I may have been privy to detailed information about what exactly happened. But as I said before, this is an energetic reading, and it would behoove you to please listen to the energetic reading before going on to the other readings. Also, he was, as I said, a beautiful, strong soul of the light. He was born into the light, and he had a sense that he actually was a light worker. Maybe not used in those terms, but some people didn't understand why he refused to compromise on certain things, and it was considered stubborn. But some people come here knowing. Some of us remember and some of us don't. But he remembered that there was no compromise when it came to his soul. It was deeper than just a signature on a paper. And many people probably ask, and I know some of them did, why he refused to sign to a label per se. And I don't think he gave the answer that was really the truth, other than something very, brief and nothing deep. He didn't want to go deep into anyone publicly, because he knew inside, in his soul, in his spirit, that there was a contract that he must not sign, because he had already signed one. He signed one before he got here, so he knew that. So it was bigger than just, oh, yeah, I don't want to sign anybody because of money. No, it was a spiritual thing and a spiritual situation for him. And he may have expressed that to some people, but I don't see very many people that he expressed his spiritual side to. So, yeah. that goes into also being intellectually crippled, for lack of better terms, early on. But as he started traveling and meeting different people, he met some people who they just were. They didn't want, they didn't need, they didn't ask. They just were. And they were people who helped him to realize who he was even more. And they were going to be the key to his evolution. I keep getting that there is a whole spiritual aspect to this young man that people have no idea about. He was just spiritual, like seriously spiritual. I don't know if anybody knows about this, because people think, you know, he's just Young Dolph. All he needs is one scale. You know, no. This man was very much connected to spirit and good and light. He was here for a purpose. And he was sometimes so delighted in the fact that he was connected, but so intellectually stifled by his environment. So it was bigger than just making money. He wanted to be intellectually stimulated, and privately, he actually sought those things and did actually. And in fact, I'm not surprised if there are some people whom he met towards the end that were very much spiritually on his level, if not, you know, higher, and that were teaching him about his spiritual connection and putting them into words that he had never heard, because he had sought these words that he was looking for. And he listened attentively to people all the time. So, yeah, I definitely get that. So, yeah, he had an epiphany towards the end. Or towards I'm saying towards the middle, towards the end. So I don't know what the middle would be, but the middle part of his life, before his, you know, being taken out of his body, he did meet some people who were spiritually helping him. Okay, so I hear so many people bringing up contracts. And as I just stated, the reason he could not and would not sign contracts is bigger than money. It was the fact that he recognized he had already made a spiritual contract to come and be a vibration and an uplifter of his people. So therefore, his contract had been signed, and to sign another one would totally violate that spiritual contract. And he may not have said those things in those words in that order, but he began to understand empathically that that's exactly what he had already done, and he could not sign something. So we're getting to the point where he is offered this outrageous amount. It happens to be a certain number. It was at that point, and as I looked, I think I've seen this video maybe once. I will go back and look at it again, but the energy just in that video is all over the place, where he says that he's not going to sign it if that, you know, 22 mil. It wasn't, as I said, so much the money as it was a spiritual thing. When he was presented with that, he then knew it was the end coming. He knew, and I wouldn't be surprised if he was extra paranoid about something or some things towards the end of his life, because he knew not signing that meant that the energies, the lower vibrational entities, were going to be using trickery, sorcery, and all sorts of things, and to, like never before, to make sure that he is no longer in his physical body. He also recognized that that they knew how to send certain energies. Sometimes there are vices with people. It could be women, like addicted to a sexual addiction. It could be a substance addiction. It could be just an addiction to abuse, or just addicted to abusing, or whatever that case may be, what we would consider a vice. He knew that they knew how to use those things, like how to send those particular entities and people in to infiltrate his spiritual being, his spiritual path. Yeah, that's amazing. And it's unfortunate that we are in such times where someone who is in our community are not able to express themselves in a very pure fashion, meaning if they believe in spirituality and not necessarily religion, and that they can't express it because people are like, what? You're weird, you're crazy, you're weird, you're crazy, you're weird, you're crazy. So like he could not express it to so many to people. And actually I see him as an intellectual snob, and I'm a Leo, so I get it. I think I might be an intellectual snob, you know, but even as a snob, he still always tried to uplift someone who was not even, you know, thinking spiritually. So he knew that was his job, and not signing that contract was a spiritual rejection to something that he knew would come against him in any shape, form, and fashion. And oh boy, did they know exactly what to use to get to him, because he had passed so many tests. He had gone through so much to the point, and he was going through so much. They literally, sorry about that, literally things had been coming at him in different directions all of his life. All of his life. Attacks, spiritually, mentally, even physically, had been coming to him all of his life. And him not signing that, what you think is a physical paper contract, was really a soul contract that he did not agree with, and he knew that they would come for him in any shape, form, or fashion, and use whatever they could against him in any way. And so I'm looking at maybe what his future would have been had his demise not happened. Let's look at what happens when you do sign these contracts. Anytime you sign a contract at all, with I don't care if it's an NDA, any contract is a contract. But these contracts are a bit different. And be careful to make sure you go and pray before you sign any contract. Period. People should know that. You as a musician or just a bearer of light, there are entities who seek to destroy those lights. This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Yeah. Everywhere I go, I'm going to let it shine. And when you have that shine, not just, oh, I'm shining because I have this car, these clothes, these material things, but no. Your soul actually shines, the shine, even off of the shining. If you guys think about it, there's a lot of references in our society that refer in reference to light, and that's no coincidence. He was a light. He was a light. A human being, but a light. Nevertheless. So towards the end, he really did have that epiphany and was moving away from things and people were not too happy about it. Well, this will conclude my energetic reading of Adolf Robert Thornton Jr. Before you click off, I just want everyone to understand that we are indeed spiritual beings. And when someone is taken out of their body and given a gruesome ending, they are not necessarily at peace. So please understand that not every energy is at peace when they are gruesomely and brutally taken out of their shell. I hope that this reading, this energetic reading, resonates with someone. And the next one will be about the clues that may or may not be useful to those who are investigating the demise of Adolf Robert Thornton Jr.'s physical, but also those who participated. There is a message for you. May God, the Creator, love, and light shower you with blessings upon blessings, health, wealth, and prosperity. This is Lotus Concierge. Tune in for my next reading.